Perfect. Well, why don't
Yeah,
we get started then?
cool. Okay.
All right. Hey guys, my name's Yves St. Clair. I'm with RIP Florence today. We got a new episode. RIP is a record label for, or would you call yourself an executive for like an independent record label?
Um, hey, there's actually a kid yelling at my window right now.
No worries. We can start
Um,
again. Like, don't
but
go.
hold on. Give
Yeah,
me a
no
sec.
problem.
Hey, sorry, I'm busy right now. I can't come out and play right now. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I'm ready.
Is that like someone you know well, or?
Uh, he's him and his brother are neighbors, and yeah, sometimes come by to like try to sell candy bars and stuff like that.
Oh wow, that's hilarious.
So yeah.
But yeah, okay. So honestly, if that's okay, can I just use that because like I like it to be
Yeah,
more
yeah, that's
genuine. Like
fine. Yeah,
30 seconds of that is. But yeah, generally speaking, like as someone who you started Shallow Diver or Shallow Dive Records, um, would you describe yourself as an executive, or how would you describe what that is exactly? Like your
mm,
title.
it's just like a fun DIY thing that I do outside of going to school, basically. And there are a lot of DIY labels in the Bay Area that are working really hard and that are doing really things are much farther along in the DIY label process than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And like some of those labels being like Paisley Shirt Records, Smoking Room, Vacant Stare. There's ones that are more far along, like Volaire or Tricycle. But basically, yeah, it's just something that I do on the side and wanted to like help my friends and my friends' bands out. And our first release was with this guy named Sam Impassis, and he's a guy who I met at an open mic in this area, and he's how old is Sam now? I think he's like 63, but he's
Wow.
yeah, he's this person of color who has struggled his whole life with drug addiction and houselessness in the city, and yeah, was living in the hate for a while, and then found himself in this area in the like South Santa Cruz area, and then yeah, we crossed paths, and I found his music to be really inspiring. He he has like this. He plays harmonica like a world class musician. Like
Oh
he's
wow.
like a really talented harmonica player, but he's also like a singer songwriter in the like really traditional hippie sense where he'll like start on one song and jam on it and then bounce into other songs.
Mm.
And but kind of like due to his experience and lifestyle, he has really shaky hands, and his playing, his like ukulele playing is like really like janky and shaky and clunky.
Oh wow.
So it's this really like weird like dichotomy between this like super good harmonica playing and this
Mm-hmm.
really like clanky ukulele playing. And he's just sort of like yelling and like
Oh
singing
wow.
over the top of it. And I just found it to be like really cool for just I was just randomly at this open mic, and yeah, when you're at open mics, usually you hear just people trying to get by in the most traditional sense possible. And this guy was just like way out there. So, yeah, I talked with him, and just that was basically like how Shallow Dive kind of started.
Oh
Like,
okay.
I just like was really influenced by his playing, and then recorded him, and then realized that once we were done recording, I was like, oh, it'd be really cool if this was like on vinyl. So
Mm.
um, I did a fundraiser, and I like filmed a mini documentary on him and
Oh,
like
whoa.
his life, and then we like raised $2,000 to put his release out on 45, and we also did CD too, and I have
That's awesome.
those here. This is the 45 we did.
Whoa. That's awesome.
Yeah. Um,
8th Street Kid. When
yeah.
was this?
Yeah, there's that. But yeah, that was kind of the thing that kicked it off, and the name Shallow Dive was just because I was sort of daydreaming, and I was working as a lifeguard at the time, and I was just there was sort of like a team of lifeguards, and we were like doing rotation, and we'd rotate from like spot to spot, and just at this particular time I was in the shallow end, and I was
Mm.
looking down, and it said, yeah, no diving in the shallow. That's sort of where it came from, and I
Oh, cool. Very Santa
yeah,
Cruz, or was that somewhere
this
else?
was in Watsonville.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is south of Santa Cruz. Yeah, my partner and I, we live in Watsonville, and but we participate a lot in like the Santa Cruz scene, and
Mm.
we do volunteer work at Sabroso, which is like a volunteer-run like venue space, and
I've heard of pretty cool place. I don't know if I've been yet, but I've been wanting to. Like Santa Cruz is 2 hours from me. I'm in the Bay Area, over in
mm-hmm.
I guess near Oakland. If you're
For
familiar.
sure. Yeah, I was in Berkeley prior
Oh,
to
nice.
being here. So, yeah, I was involved in the like the Oakland scene a bit prior to coming over here.
How long have you been doing music stuff?
Um, since probably like seventh grade, something like that. Um,
Wow.
I was skating a lot, and then got in. Well, I was playing soccer, and then like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater came out,
Eh.
and then just like quit soccer right then, and like just like got into playing that video game, and then needed a real skateboard,
Mm.
and was listening to all the bands on the soundtrack.
No
And
way.
then I remember like in middle school, like the first day of like sixth grade or something like that, one of my friends, Will, he came wearing like a Ramon shirt, and I was just like, whoa, what's that? And then got like into punk music,
Mm.
but my on my dad's side, my grandma met my grandpa when she snuck out one night to go to a Chuck Berry concert,
Eh.
and
Nice.
that's how they met. And on my mom's side, my grandma worked at a recording studio in the city, Different Fur, and she like when I was growing up, and my sister and I would stay at my grandma's whenever my parents like went out on a date or whatever,
Hmm.
and we'd all go to the studio and just like hear stories, and just sort of being in that environment. And I think, yeah, that's sort of where I got the bug for music, for
So
sure.
you're sort of a second generation music person, to a degree, with your
I
mom
don't
having.
I guess just, yeah, from both sides of my parents,
Mm.
there's kind of like I don't know, it feels like music, it just if it, yeah, music is just so entangled in how
Mm.
like things just culminated in their lives. Like if it weren't for Chuck Berry, would my dad have been born? And yeah, and yeah, my grandma working in a studio is just experiencing that made me want to then play music. But yeah,
Nice.
I think
I was gonna
that's
say, oh, go ahead.
I think that's just sort of what my background and how things sort of ended up how they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the when you mentioned Tony Hawk because they just re-released
Yeah, I
the
know.
games apparently on Xbox. I don't have it, but like I still thought it was funny. I think Jack Black
Yeah.
was
I
involved or something.
I don't play video games, and I the last video games I played were, yeah, Tony Hawk on PlayStation 1 and Pokemon on Game Boy.
The
But
classic.
yeah,
Hey,
since then I haven't played video games. But when I
wow.
heard about that coming out, I was like, oh shit, I want to go to a friend's house and
Yeah,
play
no.
one of
Because
my
like
friends.
quarantine specifically, like it's kind of like you can't go out as much, right? So
Yeah, I currently don't, and yeah, I just don't have the money to like buy
yeah,
Xbox or like PlayStation 8 or whatever they're
yeah.
on. Uh, I mean, yeah, definitely have been daydreaming about that.
mm,
Yeah.
callback, nice. Well, okay, very cool. Yeah, shallow records or shallow dive records. I don't know why.
Yeah.
The names are hard for me. I have dyslexia. But
No worries. I feel it.
so you mentioned that like so you're kind of a queer artist, musician type person, and like you did
Hmm.
a. I was like you did a fundraiser for Sam. It was that's his name, right?
Hmm.
Um, how did you get into like that sort of the side of the scene, doing like sort of fundraising and volunteer work? What inspired that?
Um, I guess it just felt natural. I feel like,
Does it come from
um,
music at all? Like, does the music itself like make you want to just be in a community, or?
yeah. Well, I feel like, well, just from growing up and like seeing my grandma being like involved in the SF scene in her way back then
Mm-hmm.
made me want to like be an artist in a scene. But um, yeah, I don't know. I guess I just the want of being involved in the music scene probably came from there. But I feel like when I started like being someone who was interested in like fundraising or thought
Mm.
that that was something that I, as an individual, could contribute to someone or to a scene, I think that, I don't know, I think that um, that just sort of happens naturally. I think that, like a lot of people our age, you know, I was kind of radicalized a bit when, Trump became president. And
Mm.
I think just got a little more involved politically at that time and wanted to volunteer at a space like Sabroso where things felt like, yeah, we're involved in music and hosting shows, but we're also, doing free markets where houseless people could come and get like
Oh wow.
essential goods to their lives and clothing and just doing different sort of community meetups that feel like imperative resources for people who might not be as privileged as someone like myself. So
Mm.
I think that, yeah, I don't know, just but I've also done a lot of volunteer work like when I was younger. Like I when I was living in the Bay, I used to commute over to this Watsonville area actually to I was volunteering with some shark researcher, and my job was I'd swim out in this slough. It's called Elkhorn Slough,
Oh whoa.
and we'd have a net set up, and then when we saw the net sort of bouncing around, or after a certain amount of time had passed, I would swim out there with a little cage. And
Hmm.
really, it was my job to like scoop whatever fish or animal. It could have been a small shark for all I knew, and just like scoop them up in the cage and then sort of swim them back. And then we would do like data entry and just note sort of like what species were in that particular area, what size they were,
Wow.
sex, etc.
And you were
And
like, how old?
this is right out of high school,
Wow. Oh
but
my gosh.
yeah, and then we with that same group, we did we filmed a pilot for Shark Week.
I think I saw that
And
on your page. Yeah.
yeah, I had to like we reenacted a stranded shark on a beach.
Whoa.
So we so this guy had like a dead shark,
Mm-hmm.
and he like put it on the beach, and then the like discovery people came and like filmed us like pretending to get like a walkie-talkie call, and then like sprinting over there and like discovering
Oh.
the dead shark and like
Mm.
putting it in a bag and then bringing it to a lab and like uh,
Wow. Shark
dissecting
Week.
it. But
Does a lot of Shark Week stuff happen in like the Santa Cruz, Watsonville sort of area, or?
not too much, but I mean, probably more than some areas, because we do have certain spots that it's known that great white sharks like to hang out at regularly. Um, and surfers know not to surf in those spots.
Mm-hmm.
And but honestly, I was like within the past few years doing volunteer work with some whale researchers in the area, and just like photographing whales and dolphins in the area and stuff like that. I'm really into marine biology, by the way. That's
Nice.
sort of going along with the whole shallow dive thing. But
Yeah.
these these people, just all the marine biologists who I've interacted with and people in that field, are so persnickety and just like so about gossip and just like
What?
really superficial and political in this like
Hmm.
really fucked up annoying way. Like I think that just because people are like so off after grant money, and there are
Um.
like so many people maybe who have marine biology degrees like grasping at straws to get money and to
Hmm.
be employed, that they'll often like pit themselves against each other, and there'll be like drama going around and people talking shit about all these other marine bio people, and it's just like, yo,
Dang.
this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I want to be involved with.
Wow.
But
Huh.
yeah, that's something, that's another volunteer thing that I like to do, but I have to do it in spurts because basically I just don't gel with those people too well, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll hang around for as long as I can and then kind of peace out.
Yeah.
So, but
You heard about
yeah,
the
that's what,
recent shark attack, by the way? Not since we're on the sort of the topic.
yeah,
Someone
yeah,
passed, I think. Super sad.
yeah. Someone just died in the area from a shark attack, and I think it was a surfer, but um,
Excuse me.
yeah,
Yeah. What's so crazy? So crazy. I was like, what?
yeah,
That's
it's
happening
wild.
right now?
And imagine being out there, being a surfer, and then getting bit, and then having to go to a hospital
Right.
where there's potentially
Oh.
a lot of people with like COVID-19.
Mm,
It's just like, that would suck. That sounds like
I know.
horrible.
Wow.
Um,
Taking risks, low key. I feel like that's. I mean,
yeah,
not to. I mean, everybody's got to like enjoy your life or whatever. But
yeah, but I
yeah.
mean, right now, I mean, yeah, we should sort of be sheltering in place a bit
Yeah.
more. And I mean, the odds of getting bit by a shark, they say, are like, yeah,
Super unlikely.
you're more likely to get shocked by lightning or whatever. But
Yeah, but
I mean,
also if you go out to a a place where sharks are,
yeah,
it's not like you were at home.
and also the way in which we are interacting with our surroundings affects marine life, and it affects just uh, everything really. So I mean,
Hmm.
they're saying there are more sharks showing up now because less people are in the waters and in their
Uh,
boats and stuff. And yeah, I guess they just spotted a blue shark near Monterey, near the coast for the first time in I think maybe 20 plus years or something. But um,
I always get tripped up about that kind of stuff because like they disappear because of endangered species, our fishing issues and all that. But
yeah, and that was sort of the idea behind the first logo idea we had for Shallow Dive, is like a shark with a like harpoon through it and in blood. It sort of set
whoa.
Shallow Dive records, but it's
Hmm.
just basically a political commentary about, yeah, humans and the way that we interact with the natural world, and you know consumerism, how that plays into how we fuck up each other and the planet.
Hmm. So would you
So
say that Shallow Dive Records is like a fairly like activist sort of based to like environmental activist, or I'll let you decide what exactly, but
yeah, well, with Sam, our first release, that felt really good because he's a person of color who struggled with addiction and houselessness his whole life, and putting out his record first felt like really empowering for him, and like a step in the right direction for what I wanted this label to be about.
mm-hmm.
But as time has progressed, it definitely feels really difficult to curate things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
to make the overall goal of the label be like activism first, you know?
Yeah.
So I still want those elements to be um like a tenet of what Shallow Dive is about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, at the same time, it's felt difficult because as a new label, I'm sort of trying to figure out how to encourage people to like submit music to us. But
Mm.
that's happened a few times, but it isn't happening regularly yet, just because
Mm-hmm.
we're pretty new. And so I think that as like word of mouth sort of spreads, and as
Yeah.
just people find us more on Instagram or through things like this, then there will be more opportunity to make it um, as socially conscious as I want it to be. And yeah, I'm still thinking of ways in which we could do, physical copies that don't leave as big of a, carbon footprint.
Mm.
So, we've only done a few physical releases so far, and
Mm.
yeah, that's something that I definitely am still working out going forward. And if there's anyone watching this who's interested in collabing or has some ideas of how
Yeah.
Shallow Dive or other labels could potentially do that, please, yeah, reach out, or yeah, just let us know in some way your thoughts, because it's not just about me trying to come up with ideas about how to make Shallow Dive more conscious. It should be about the overall music community coming together and pushing each other and having conversations with each other about
Definitely.
how we could all do things like this together, so that it becomes a culture and a norm, So
If you had like, is there a statement that you have that like maybe could inspire? Just because I'm kind of curious, as someone who like might listen to this podcast and like though they hear that you're looking for new artists to submit, do you
Mhm.
have like a sort of like statement for that? Maybe like what you're looking for, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like, well, okay. Yeah, since I've started this, um, things surrounding this have started to become really, um, yeah, overt and obvious and things that I didn't think would happen at all.
Mm.
Um, some of those things are like the few submissions I've been getting lately have been from people who have already released their album.
Interesting.
Yeah. So basically, this has really surprised me because this happens all the time.
Wow, weird.
And basically, yeah, a message to bands out there: if you want support and help from a label, you should talk to them before releasing your album, because a label could help you release your album. They could help do promo or whatever. And it's when you release an album, it's kind of an important time for your release, because a lot of people, when there's that initial release, there's this excitement that happens.
Hmm.
And a lot of times this excitement will not be recreated ever with this body of work.
Yeah,
Maybe if you do a re-release, like if your band
makes
like
it, so to
makes a,
speak.
yeah, or makes some big splash in the scene, and 20 years later you do a huge remix and huge remaster, maybe that body of work will see another big splash, but likely not.
I think Car
So
Seat Headdress did that, but that's like one person.
yeah, for sure. And they're a huge band. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what is it? So basically, if um also, I think that, especially with small labels, um releasing a band's music should be viewed as a mutual, like, symbiotic thing, where both groups really, like, they gain things from a collab, you know.
Hmm.
I think that when bands release, like, their music, um and then follow up with a label, like, basically the label loses the opportunity to be associated with that body of work when
Hmm.
that initial excitement happens. So that kind of word of mouth opportunity is huge for labels just starting out, like Shallow Dive is. So yeah, my advice to DIY bands, if you're reaching out to little labels, definitely reach out prior to your release,
Yeah.
because yeah, if you're just looking to, like, sort of get money from a label to do, like, physical copies after you've already released your music,
Hmm.
like, a lot of these people who do DIY labels are just working class people,
Yeah.
like me personally. I live in a small trailer in Watsonville, and am a student, and um yeah, just working and trying to get to a point where, you know um I can help bands more and stuff like that. But for now, it's, you know um these people who do DIY labels, we a lot of them don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're a DIY band and think that you can just get money from someone like that, I think that you should maybe rethink what your incentives are and priorities are surrounding
Hmm.
your music, and what you want to get out of sharing your music with other people.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's like, I don't know, to me the idea of like releasing something and then like being like, hey, do you want to take over the effort? Like that's essentially what people, it sounds like they're saying. It's like we released something, we already got all of our attention from it, but do you want to like give us money about it? Like it just seems really strange in the DIY sense. Like maybe if you want to get signed by a major label, but like that's way different than going to someone in the DIY scene.
Yeah, it has seemed really confusing as a tactic, like from my perspective, and it does make a lot of sense to have your merch ready when you release your album digital.
Definitely.
Because your friends or your people who follow your band or your music will probably could be excited and want to support you in that moment. So it would make sense
Hmm.
to have it ready then. But everyone does things differently, and if there, say, if there were someone like Sam or someone who I felt had a really unique music sensibility, um, who was niche and just had something really, really great about them that I thought, then I would definitely still consider like helping them with physical releases after they had already
Mm.
released their music. But it just, everything, it has to be circumstantial,
Yeah.
and
Con-
uh,
Contextual for sure.
yeah. And for us, I'm mainly trying to stick to like a sort of like lo-fi folk, like post-punk, no wave, sort of new wave, lo-fi type aesthetic and sensibility with the music.
Okay.
And um, yeah, I think that, yeah, when bands reach out to labels, they should definitely um, really be critical about like what their sound is, and reach out to like an appropriate like label or people who actually cater to a demographic that makes sense for their music, because oftentimes people can like reach out to people who they think are cool,
Mm.
but um, but that might not necessarily honestly reflect the aesthetic of their art in a like in terms of genre. Um, that isn't to say that you know yeah, I don't know. It's I think that, I don't know, some people can just like really need stuff from other people, and I think that, ultimately, if you're a musician, you should just make music and have fun and love making art. That's I think more people should focus on that rather than um, like being popular on Instagram or something
Yeah.
like that. Um,
The the social aspect of attention or whatever and money,
yeah,
etc.
yeah, and yeah, people want, validation and love, and they want to feel a part of a scene, and it is good to be a collaborator. And I think that um, yeah, it would. I think it makes sense for people to just like sort of look at themselves and think, what am I good at, and what do I love to do, and what's something that can offer things in a collaborative sense that I can bring to a community. And I think that, yeah, that it's important to different people to bring different things to the table. And I think that was a part of why I wanted to start like a DIY label too. Yeah.
Heck yeah. I mean, it's not about one person shining above all the others, but everybody can kind of come together and like what you guys make together is what matters. Not
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
egos, so to speak,
Yeah,
if I get what you're saying. Well, very
for
cool.
sure.
Is there anything like what have you sort of learned as having already like started? Like when did you start this label? A couple years ago, 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, it's been, I think, maybe a little over 2 years now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
And
so it's pretty new, and I think we've done like I think, yeah, we're getting. I'm I always say we when referring to the list, but it's really just me doing all this. But I
classic.
think, yeah, I think I'm. It's gonna be 11. The next release will be the 11th release,
Oh.
and that will be a project that my friend EJ and I have been working on. It was a band called Crocodile Tears, and we played for a bit around Santa Cruz before EJ moved to Chicago, and yeah, that's gonna be the next release on Shallow Dive. But
Hey. What kind
yeah,
of genre of music is that, if I can ask?
yeah, it's like so it's EJ and I, and we switch back and forth between drums and the other one like playing guitar, and
Whoa.
it's like really like lo-fi sort of punk sort of like sing-along type
Mm-hmm.
songs. Um, yeah, it feels sort of like Beat Happening and like Violent Femmes a bit. Um, but
Nice.
yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, it's fun. It's kind of like bouncy music.
Okay. Actually, someone that I just interviewed, this band called Wax Romantic, they're like a
Mm,
lo-fi pop band that is just
yeah,
coming out with some stuff on not Kick, Bandcamp. I don't know why I said Kickstarter. And I
yeah,
think they were also saying like, yeah, like the lo-fi vibe is really starting to kind of, I think, pick up a bit in this area. So I'm excited. I'm a fan of it. Yeah, Beat
yeah,
Happening, classic stuff.
yeah. It seems like it's been popular since Bandcamp and things like that have been a tool for people to use, but with all of this coronavirus stuff happening, I feel like there's going to be another big wave of this where
Bedroom pop
lo-fi,
kind of vibe.
yeah, lo-fi might reinvent itself in some way. But
Mm-hmm.
um, as of late, prior to this, I've been kind of disappointed with that term because um, it seems like it's kind of used by people to just as almost like clickbait. Whereas like I'll see like playlists and things like that called lo-fi, and it's like this really like hi-fi, like ambient, like instrumental music or things like that, and it's like,
Mm. Like the
whoa.
lo-fi hip hop beats. Is that what you're kind
Yes, I've heard some lo-fi hip-hop beats that have
of?
sounded so crisp and like just so put together and so on point in terms of like the mix and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, some applications of the term lo-fi have just seemed really um, like
I
they
think
can
it's
alienate lo-fi. You know what I mean?
definitely. Well, what's
Yeah.
probably happened a bit is like I think people just add like they because I've actually I'm not maybe not necessarily I haven't made it, but like there's like lo-fi house music is a thing, and I'm into
Mhm.
techno, and really what that is you make a song and then you add like an effect that makes it sound lo-fi. Like you just it's not like it actually had natural recording in a lo-fi
Mm.
sort of sensibility, but like more so just you've got your tracks and then you put a little like buzz on it so it sounds like it's like
Yeah.
fake essentially. Like it's just like added to like
Yeah.
because it's a popular sort of zeitgeisty sound right now. At least it was. I don't know if it still is, anyways. But
Yeah.
um,
They just like slapped the lo-fi plug-in on right at the end.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just in the background adding to it because it's its own sound. It's not even like coming from what they've created necessarily, but just to give it that crispness or not Christmas, but sensibility, I guess. That's
Yeah.
such an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an instrument now. I don't even know what instrument it is, but it's out there and we all hear it.
So lo-fi means like low fidelity, right? Which just means like kind of recording with not super crisp equipment. Is that sort of the vibe?
Yeah, like like when people would record on like 4 tracks back in the day and still now. But I think it has to do with the ultimately the initial way that the music is captured. And like if you're using a cheap microphone, or if you're just maybe even just shouting into your iPhone or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it has to do with the way the music is initially captured, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to some post production application.
Yeah, definitely. Is so you guys like as a label inherently sort of are you would like kind of quantify it as being lo-fi, like all of the
Yeah.
releases are using like lo-fi equipment, and um, if someone came up to you guys and like sent an email that was like not using that, would that essentially just like you're not interested, or what's your take on that sort of deal of things?
So I think in answering this question, we'd have to basically, yeah, define lo-fi again. Because for me, I feel like um, I personally do label my own music as lo-fi, but some of my songs have been done in a recording studio.
Mm.
But it just so happens that those songs as well weren't really like I did the mix on them, and um, they were never really properly mastered. So you could um,
It fits within the umbrella in a sense because it's
in today's contemporary like umbrella, yeah, it does fit in that lo-fi bubble. And like there was a band Super Bloom who I recorded, and then we put out their EP on Shallow Dive, and I recorded them with my equipment, and um, I would consider those recordings lo-fi too, because even though I tried really hard and put the microphones in the places I thought would be best and stuff like that, at the end of the day, I'm not some recording engineer like
there's no
person.
budget necessarily in the same way.
Yeah, I'm not a professional recording engineer. I am ultimately a hobbyist, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can. But yeah, I think that if someone were to reach out to me with like really with music that sounded really well produced, I would definitely not turn them down just on that alone. If it was a band who had really who put a lot of time into mixing and mastering their music and had the capability to do so,
Mm-hmm.
but their music was like outsider, or it was really intentional and
Mm.
to themselves in a way that fits the sort of umbrella of genres that I'm going for with Shallow Dive, then I would definitely be interested in that music, especially if it was you know somewhat put out by uh, peoples who are definitely um, uh, considered marginalized in one way or another. If it was some rich guy band, and it was like a bunch of blues
Yeah.
guitar solos, something like
But you probably aren't getting a lot of those guys.
I got one,
Wow.
but yeah, it yeah
Do you
wasn't
think
the
people
right
just
fit.
look up like a local record label and then just submit to as many as possible? Like, and it's a very
Yeah,
like copy pasted emails.
yeah, people do that, and
That seems like
I
step one. Don't do that if you want to get signed.
and I did that when I was younger, trying to figure out how to be a musician in a scene, and wanting acceptance, and ultimately there probably is a time and place for people to be trying those things out. But for me, when I get stuff like that, I just try to be upfront and honest and kind, and not just ghost people who put themselves out there,
Hmm.
and, just try to let them know, hey, this doesn't feel like the right fit, but
Thanks for.
yeah, thanks for considering us, and I hope that, and I hope you find a label that is the right fit for this kind of music, and best of luck to you, but because a lot of people can be really heartbroken in having their art be rejected, and
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah, and as much as I would love there to be a social aspect to the music that I release, you know, um, it's also, I think, important to acknowledge that when it comes to like just like white cis males expressing themselves, there is a culture in which people know that it's guys reinforce each other, and like it's hard to express yourself emotionally
Hmm.
um, in a lot of environments as a guy when there are other guys trying to uphold this culture.
Hmm.
And in music, it's pretty well acknowledged that um, guys can express their emotions. So I think that just writing people off just on their gender or their or race, I personally don't do that. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think um, it's important to acknowledge and just like think about all the factors that go into releasing music and why people make certain art and things like that. Everything's complicated. you know
Definitely.
yeah.
Um, just because I'm kind of curious, as a label, like if I was a band submitting to you guys, um, what are like the benefits, I guess, in your opinion, of a DIY label? Like, what are the sort of like, it is definitely a collaboration, 100%, but like, what is the labels side of things, more than just like necessarily publishing, but
Yeah.
beyond.
um, well, nowadays things are even more blurred with social media now being a factor. I think that when the whole Napster thing happened and the whole music industry sort of got turned around, the need for labels started to go away,
Yeah.
and bands could put out their own music, and that was really great. And now that all those bands are on social media, it's also it introduces a whole new set of variables in which we're all navigating. So, what I observe in what other labels are doing currently is it seems like some of the smaller labels who I personally watch, um, they help bands with physical releases, being like tapes or CDs or vinyl or whatever.
Hmm.
And these bands and these labels seem to work things out based on what the label can do and based on the what the band can do, and also just the context of the release. So some bands might have more money to contribute to their releases, some labels might have more money. um, for me, I don't make much money personally, so I try to like just talk with the band and we come up with a game plan of what we can do together in those scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
But also labels can help a lot with social media posts, sharing news about releases. They can also put releases up on their Bandcamps or SoundClouds or whatever and get their audience to listen to the music. They can also send emails to people who do blogs or reviews and things like that and get the releases reviewed. And for me, I've started doing playlists on Spotify, sharing local bands and bands who have contacted me for releases on the label, and just friends bands and bands who I like, and I've started like monthly playlists. And that seemed to, a lot of local bands have seemed to like that, and it informs other bands of what other bands are around, who's in their area, who has maybe a similar sound, things like that. And
Definitely. I've definitely seen that playlist stuff like sort of explode in terms of like everyone seems to be making a playlist. Like I go on Spotify or I go on Instagram and like you go through a few stories and it's just like someone's advertising their playlist. But as someone who like has tried doing that myself a little bit, it's hard to get more than like 10 followers or whatever unless you really have a super strong following. So are you able to get like attraction on these playlists or getting like people to check them out?
I'm working on building it, but it's these things, they don't come overnight, they take time, and that's all we can do really. I'm just posting about these playlists on my social media and trying to share them on Reddit and different things like that, and just trying to get the word out that way. And but it just, there's so many variables to spreading whatever you want to spread on the internet, and be it, was this the right time of day to post, or is my face in this picture so that the algorithm will notice it just so many different things.
There's so many variables. You're a skater as well, right? Like I think I already brought up that in the podcast. Hopefully we talked about it a little bit before, but I've uncovered something kind of interesting, which is the whole like YouTube skate videos that have like local, or not, I shouldn't call them local, but like undiscovered or just like less known bands as like their music. I actually found this guy who made something pretty interesting from the Bay Area, and it was just from like a random Dale Decker video, which I don't know if you're familiar with that skateboarder, but he's like a skateboard YouTuber.
Yeah, that name sounds familiar actually.
I think if you've ever heard of Spencer Barton, I think they're like together, they're homies.
Cool.
But that's like a whole kind of interesting, when you brought up the sort of like trying to get traction and stuff, like there's so many sort of new facets to consider. Like, is it worth like like emailing content creators and be like, hey, you can use my music for free, I'd really love to have my song in one of your videos, and that kind of I shouldn't call it advertising, but like getting listens and getting people actually like be exposed to your music in a new platform. Oh, man.
Yeah, ultimately it is advertising. I mean, it depends how you do it, really. If you're a band and you just put out a song and you are hitting up random people to share your song in their video, then that's advertising.
Yeah.
But if you're like, if your friend does videos and you're having a conversation and it just comes up and you two decide to collab on a video,
the more natural way, that's definitely seems better to me. Just like the copy paste.
And ultimately I think what this comes down to in a way is privilege, because I feel like a lot of people, they would love to just have a conversation with their good friend who makes awesome videos that they'd want their music in, and I
But
think that certain artists, when they have the privilege of having other talented artist friends,
mm,
will talk about this process in a way like sort of like they're hot shit, and like
mm-hmm.
but like this is it just happened natural, and that this is um like a sort of elevated, honest way of doing things. But I could also admire those people who um, maybe feel like they don't quite have as many friends or something, and want to feel some sort of acknowledgement, or just love in some way, and reach out on a whim to someone and ask to collaborate in that way, and
I mean, I hit up you literally just because I was looking to talk to people that I thought would
it,
actually talk to me, and
yeah, and that
it
felt
happens.
totally good to me, and I really appreciate you doing that.
Oh, of course. No, yeah. It turned out really well, I think, Rip. I'm really glad we got to have this conversation.
Yeah, this is cool.
It's almost an hour, and I know you said 30 minutes, so I feel kind of bad, but
No worries.
I just had one question, or a couple, yeah, really one main question.
Hmm.
Hot or not, Instagram advertising, like people that buy sponsored stories for their bands. What's your
I've
take?
done it a few times, and I think I've tried everything a few times, and you know, ultimately, I don't, I can't blame bands for doing this. I think that Spotify, the platform, in creating an avenue for blue collar artists or other people to give this huge corporation money
Hmm.
to just have a better algorithm is
Yeah,
fucked up. I think Instagram should have there should just be a better algorithm in
yeah.
general. That's what it should be, and we shouldn't have
A pay to
to
win algorithm.
yeah, we shouldn't have to consider paying for a better one.
It totally like I still don't even understand how people's like posts get seen on like when you go to search on Instagram and it's got all these random like things that it thinks you'll like based on your personal algorithm. I know you how I can control my own, but I've never understood like how someone that doesn't have 5,000 followers or more like gets on that page. It seems like you have to have the craziest hashtags or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you have to have those hashtags on lock. You have to have your posting times. You have to have that money ready. And
Yeah.
you know, some bands, I know a couple bands who do pay for that advertising, and on some of them it looks really bad, and on some of them, their music is so good that I just don't really care. But
See that? Yeah, that's I think what it comes down to for sure. There's a lot of mediocre advertising on Instagram for bands. I've noticed like so many times. I just skip it immediately because I'm just like, this just looks so bad. Like you didn't put any thought into this. You just were like, I'll make a 5 minute video and then spend $100 and see what happens. It's like
yeah, I think for
the
me,
product should be good to me. I don't know.
yeah, I think that for me, it what it really comes down to is just when things feel really cringy to me, it's
Mm-hmm.
probably because I associate that with my younger self figuring out how to do
Mm.
and how embarrassed I felt about it later. And when I see things in which people could potentially feel the same way, I kind of, yeah, get weirded out. So,
Like over the internet, what's the word for it? Empathy, but like cringe empathy, sort of like
yeah, yeah, for sure.
emotions are so complicated in the 21st century. Anyways, well, thank you so much. This has actually been really interesting and informative. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but just like, wow, that's really cool stuff you had to share, Rip. Anything upcoming that you want to shout out real quick as we end this, or what's going on with Shallow Dive? What can we look forward to? I know you mentioned. Sorry, I do this thing where I ramble. Anyways, go
No
ahead.
worries. Yeah. Well, thanks again for the opportunity. Yeah, this has been fun. I've got nothing on the horizon. I've prior to all of this, I was working on a music video, but that all got canceled because we can't meet up anymore. But
Yeah,
um, I just hope that everyone stays safe and that we all just keep our heads up in what ways we can and help those who need more help and are able to all hang out and do our art stuff as full as we want to and collab and see each other again soon in the future. But um, yeah, that's it. I mean, yeah, thanks again for having me.
of
Yeah, I've
course.
really appreciated this.
No worries. Thank you for coming on. I mean, it takes a
Mhm.
lot to really just have a conversation with a stranger, essentially. So,
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
I know it takes that. But anyways, thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'll get this online as soon as possible. Let me just